Good morning, everyone. I don't know how it happens, but I think every time you just get prettier and more handsome. So I don't know how that happens, but it's hard being so good looking, isn't it? But I'm glad you guys are here today. And I want to welcome, we have a few first-time guests. I want to welcome you today. And a little bit of housekeeping. So the bathrooms would be through this door around the left. And also make sure you have a packet, the pink packet, with some great information in it for today. And on the back of that packet, somebody hold that up. Should we have the obnoxiously bright? Yes, that's a feedback form. Make sure you fill that out at the end. We've changed it up a bit today, so we have some other questions for you to fill out, and that helps us better serve you. Pens, water at the table here, and feel free to grab that to write out notes. And also, if you have questions throughout, there'll be a Q&A at the end of the seminar. I'm super excited about today's seminar. We're going to introduce some amazing panelists here in a minute. Registration and sign-in. So be kind to our registration people. Also, register if you can online. That helps us make sure we have enough packets for you. And I'll tell you this, here's a secret. Here's a cheat code. If you connect with Dawn or Kayan on the way out and just say, register me for the rest of them, they'll do that. So you don't have to do that every month. I know a couple of people have asked. I don't want to have to hassle with that. So we'll make a list and just register you every month. Let's see what else I got. Educational partners. Amazing folks at our tables today, and make sure you check them out and say hi to them. We are all about seniors planning smarter, and so we're excited to bring you these seminars for free as we work together. What else? Pen and water sponsor. Why don't you guys come on up? Our pen and water sponsor, Visiting Angels and GTX Wealth. So these are the folks who provided our pens and water today. And just come on up stage under the bright lights. Yes. Tell us about you and Visiting Angels and what you do.
My name is Jessica Jorgensen. I'm with Visiting Angels Williamson County here in Georgetown. We service Williamson County and North Austin as well. And we're living assistance, home care. So I like to say living assistance because we do a lot of things to help people kind of stay in their home and stay independent. Showering, food prep, transportation, the list kind of is on and on. We're non-medical, but we certainly try to help out as much as we can. The only thing we ask is you give us a call, and we come out and do a quick assessment and kind of see what you need and who you are, and then we can staff something within 24 hours. So that's who we are, Visiting Angels, Williamson County. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Scott Olson with GTX Wealth, and I'm glad that I got to be a sponsor today because when you talk about your health, and there's right there in conjunction with your physical health is your financial health. And so that's what I help folks with. And we really take a holistic view. We make sure that if you have any questions or need anything addressed in the estate planning, tax planning, insurance planning, income planning, or with investments, that's what we help folks with. So we help you answer questions and find solutions to those different areas, like a long-term care solution, so that you have care if the time comes when you need to use one of the great facilities that are represented here. So answering questions like that is what I can help folks with. Scott with GTX Wealth, thank you.
Doesn't he have the best voice? It kind of makes me want to talk like that. Thank you guys so much. All right. Thank you. Okay, I will ask our panelists to come on up to the stage. And I'm so excited. Anything about food, I really enjoy. And the surprise today is you get a 5-course meal at the end of the seminar. I'm just kidding. So I'll ask them to come on up and take their seat. Also, those of you who are newer and you may not have a binder to put all your packets in month after month, we do have some binders out there. So ask Dawn or Kayan for that. And I think that's about it, all my housekeeping items. So let's start with some introductions, and we'll start over here with Craig. Tell us kind of a little bit about who you are and where you work.
So my name is Craig Lentz. I am the Dining Services Director and the Executive Chef at the Oscar at Georgetown. It is a memory care, assisted living, and independent living facility not more than about 10 minutes from here. I started very recently with this company, but I've been in the restaurant and food service business for a very long time. Recently, I spent 3 years in Ecuador in a restaurant and doing food service, and a lot of our friends were retired and had a lot of specific needs that re-inspired myself and my wife to really come back into this industry as much as we have. And being with people that are at this stage of our life, we have different needs and you have different things that you're looking for. And so I've been lucky enough to parlay my background in food service and restaurant ownership into becoming the dining services director here, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience and a wonderful place to be.
Great, thank you, Craig. How about you, Chelsea?
So I'm a registered dietitian. I have a private practice that I have owned for 6 years. I have an office in Cedar Park, but I also do virtual. Nutrition has always been really important to me, and I like to, I love showing people that eating healthy can be tasty, it can be affordable, and it's feasible no matter what. And so I love working one-on-one with people to really show them how they can have a healthy diet no matter what they have going on.
Thank you. Okay, Clay.
All right, my name is Clay Rule. I own Chefs for Seniors. I've been in the restaurant business for probably a little over 33 years, from franchise corporate chef to restaurant owner to head dishwasher when I got started. We do in-home meal prep for seniors. We send a chef into the home. They spend a couple of hours making good, healthy, custom meals for our customers.
Excellent, excellent. So who would say, raise your hand, that your relationship with food probably has changed over the years? Like the way you view food, or some of you don't enjoy cooking anymore, or man, this is a hassle. So I saw a few hands. Any hands that, yeah. I know some folks who just say, restaurant A tonight, B tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Or your favorite aisle in H-E-B is the personal little pre-made meals maybe that you just pick up. So whether it's just taste change, health, maybe you're cooking for one. I know that was a seminar idea that somebody gave us several months ago of like, I was used to cooking for 5-6 people, and now it's just me or me and my husband, and things are different. And so I don't want the hassle of just preparing a whole meal. I just want to do something simple. So nutrition as we age can be a very loaded, complicated issue. And I think today is going to really sort of shed some light on things. So also as we go through, we'll have, again, time at the end for question and answer. So write those down. And if you don't want to ask the question in the big group, our panelists will be at their tables after, so make sure you check with them. But Chelsea, let's start with you. And when we talk about nutrition and healthy aging, what really matters most, right? And what should older adults pay attention to in eating?
Well, this comes down to making sure that you are eating enough. That's a big one. And then the what you eat. So it's important to try to focus on getting different nutrients in your diet. Protein is a really big one that I see that seniors are not getting enough of, and part of that is because the preparation for it is more complicated. It takes a little bit of time. There are ways to get in protein without all of the effort. It's just about knowing which foods are easy and packed with protein. calcium, vitamin D is also very big. So we got to protect our bones, and so that's something that we have to be mindful of too. And there's ways to work with it. So people who are lactose intolerant, there's ways to work around that as well. And then fiber is really big. So fiber is so important for heart health, so important for blood sugar management, and it's good to sprinkle it out through the day for your digestive tract as well. So those are probably the biggest things to really think about as we get older, and all the nutrients that we really need to get in to protect our health.
That's great, thank you. So Clay, practically, where do you see folks struggle the most in kind of putting this into practice, sort of when you start working with folks?
So again, back to Chelsea's, we see a lot of seniors that just are not eating enough. And being able to have easy meals that are high protein, high fiber, that doesn't take them an hour and a half in the kitchen to make is extremely important. I talk with seniors every day, and I'm in their homes doing consultations, and high protein, I need more protein. My doctor says I need more protein, and how to do that and how to get that in their diet. But it's also sometimes, we don't eat a lot. And sometimes we have to make really small meals and maybe make more of them so that they are able to quickly heat those up and eat them.
That's great. So let's kind of do an offshoot question. Protein, like we said that's a very important piece. Tell us the ideal, any of you, all of you, and you can also disagree too, how much protein? What's the formula for that on average for an older adult, a senior?
Okay, this is a loaded question.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
I'll tell you why. In my experience, giving somebody an exact goal of protein can be overwhelming because, to be honest, it's a lot. Even to get my own protein needs, I have to supplement with like a protein drink or something for the day. So what I like to tell people is start with, if you really want to know, try to identify, you can do a few things. You can say, okay, well, how much protein do I get in a day? You can track it one day if you want, or just roughly add it up, or just think about the foods that contain protein and say, am I eating these at most of my meals or my snacks? And then just work on improvement. Because just through experience, when people see this number, and I can tell you it's close to, for most people, at least 80 grams a day, it feels overwhelming, and once it feels overwhelming, then people tend to give up. So just start with where you are and work on increasing it, and then you are doing better than you were.
So if I eat my mac and cheese and my mashed potatoes, like those probably aren't very protein heavy.
Probably not.
Okay, just want to make sure. God goodness. So, Craig, tell us about how to, especially in your line of work, how do you balance nutrition and then like making food that people actually want to eat and enjoy? Because sometimes it's like, oh, high protein, high fiber, like that doesn't always sound great, because how do you balance that?
For us, a lot of it is talking and communicating with the people that we're serving. Our world is that we have people who are eating 3 meals a day with us. So we are now their in-home chef like Clay is. But they're limited to what we're providing for them. And so we work with a lot of different programs and apps that help us balance the nutritional needs for all of the people that we serve. Now, we just get to make this, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to like it or that you're going to want it. And so our goal is always to keep in touch with the people that we serve, with all of our residents, and get feedback constantly and look for ways to make it the way that they used to make it, that you all used to make it, because I have people every day giving me recipes. Hey, could you make this recipe for me? Can you make this recipe for me? And while it's wonderful, our goal is to take all those ideas and to make them into meals that we're serving you 3 times a day. And the challenge for a lot of seniors is you cooked those 3 meals a day for yourself in a certain way, and now somebody else is cooking them for you a little bit different. And how do we find the balance between what you're used to eating, what we're providing, and it's just an open communication constantly with constant feedback and constant questioning, because some days we get it right, some days we don't. But we keep trying every day to make it better and better so that you feel like it is your home, because it is.
Yeah, that's good. And the reality is that there is a nexus between finding meals that taste good and that are good for you. They're out there.
There are, and a lot of it it changes from person to person. And so what you may like one day, somebody doesn't like at all. And so it's a constant wave.
Yeah.
It's a lot of feedback. Getting feedback from your guests or your customers on what they like, how they like it, and that way you can keep improving every time.
Yeah, that's good. So we talked about protein and fiber. What other nutrients or things do you see that seniors are often not getting enough of? Anyone? Chelsea?
So for sure, just fluid intake, dehydration. So as we age, thirst becomes something that our body is not as good at telling us that we're thirsty, so we tend to take in less fluid. Fluid plays a huge role in your health, and it can really contribute to feeling really dizzy, and it can be very serious. My mom was hospitalized twice for dehydration, so I know very well, and she got very confused. So it's really, really important to make sure you're getting the fluid you need. And fluid can be it's fine if you want to do a sugar-free something to get it in, if you want to do bubbly water, if you want to do water flavored with fruit, like however you get it in, great. You can also get it through your foods. So it's not just about doing this one day, it's about being really consistent with it. And the other thing that's really important is healthy fats. So healthy fats are something that really help if you're not eating throughout the day, you're not getting the calories that you need. It helps with brain health and cognitive function. So getting those healthy fats in, avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds, those are wonderful sources.
So, yeah, Clay, go ahead.
I think also it's about balance as well. As we grew up, we had the food pyramid, right? Well, that food pyramid is now switched. They wanted us to eat lots of grains and things, and now it's more about protein and healthy fats. So having that balanced diet. And there was one thing that when I started doing this, I found out is as we age, we lose our taste buds. So the last one to go is the sweet taste bud. And so I think back of my parents now and my grandparents, they ate a lot of sweets. Well, of course, that's not great for you. It's high sugar, but making sure that you're eating other things, even though all you want is maybe ice cream, just to be a balance so that you're getting the nutrition that you need.
Doesn't that explain a lot right there? I mean, I saw some people laughing, like the last ones to go are your sweet taste buds. That makes perfect sense now. That's right. I couldn't help it. That's all I could taste. Briefly, let's talk about how nutrition, let me ask this other question. So water intake, hydration. Chelsea expertly evaded my protein question. Now let's come back to water and fluid intake. What's the target for that? Surely you're going to answer that one. Yeah. Okay, great.
So water intake, what you really want to shoot for is, at minimum, you want to get about 80 ounces a day, and that can be a lot. So you got to spread it throughout the day. But if you want to start somewhere, shoot for 60. And one way to help you do that is make your, a water bottle or something like your best friend, bring it everywhere you go, and if you kind of sip on it throughout the day, what's really nice is your body gets kind of accustomed to that, and then you start to feel thirst a little bit more. So just kind of having something that's easy to drink out of, convenient to carry. So I like this because it has a handle. I can have my hands full and still have this in my hand. And I just carry it everywhere I go. So just trying to get in, start with, if you're below 60, start with the 60, try to get to 80, but the color of your urine is really telling on how hydrated you are. So that is the best way to identify your hydration status. It should be a very light yellow, except for first thing in the morning. That is totally your body just excreting extra like things it doesn't need. So the rest of the day, very light yellow, and that's how you know.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about electrolytes or electrolyte powders and things like that?
No, I think electrolyte powders are great. I think you don't want to overdo it. You don't need to put it in every drink of the day, but having like 1 or 2 electrolyte drinks throughout the day is a really great idea. So you can buy the little packets, you can do like a Powerade or something like that, but that's another way to get in some extra nutrients that you might kind of be missing from your foods.
So my mom and dad usually come. They're not here today, so I can pick on her. I'm constantly talking about fluids and hydration and staying hydrated. And her feedback to me is, I just don't think about it, or it was never like a thing we talked about growing up. We just didn't. But there really has been this emphasis on staying hydrated. And Chelsea, you said something I think is very interesting, how your mom was hospitalized for it, and dehydration and not getting enough fluids really can mimic a lot of different health issues. Could you speak to that just a little bit? And we're off script here, but I thought it was a great question.
Yeah, so dehydration can, they thought my mom was having a stroke because she was mumbling gibberish. She was losing her balance, but it can also increase fall risk. So that's a really big one too. So if you're feeling dizzy because of dehydration, that increases risks for falling. It can make you your brain gets very confused. So there's a lot of things that you can do and harm yourself. If you're cooking in the kitchen, you can leave the stove on. There's all these other things that play into that. And also your digestive system. You've got to have enough water to move things through. And so that's a big one as well. So it can be very serious. It also can concentrate other nutrients in your blood and cause other issues because your body has excess nutrients of other things because it doesn't have enough fluid in there. So these nutrients become concentrated and they just add to all these symptoms where people can, when you're hospitalized or somebody is very concerned about your health, because you can have symptoms of a heart attack or stroke and that sort of thing. So it's very, very important.
So the big takeaway today, I see somebody's drinking water already. I love it. Everybody take a sip of your water, and then there's water on the way out. Make sure you get a bottle. Thank you for that. I think that's such an important piece to know and to remember and be mindful of. So Clay, when we talk about eating well, it gets harder, as we age. And so what are some of the biggest sort of issues that you've encountered that seniors face when they're trying to prepare meals in their home? And you kind of swoop in, and what are some things you're seeing?
So a lot of it is bad habits, or just being, okay, so we only can taste these things, or this is what we've done, and being in this routine or this rut of the same foods they eat. We see that a lot. A lot of it is they don't want to stand in the kitchen for an hour and a half to make something. Again, it's either they can't or they don't want to. I will tell you this, I have gone into so many homes and people are like, I don't want to cook anymore. And I mean, from people that are 40 years old to 90 years old. I'm just tired of cooking. I've cooked for 40 years. I don't want to do it anymore. And sometimes when you're not wanting to do that, you fall back on the things that are easy, that aren't necessarily healthy, mac and cheese, right? Or processed foods, which we could talk for hours about. Through the last 70 years, I guess, since World War II, everything got easier. Everything got canned, everything mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese, and all these processed foods that are quick and easy, but they're really not good for us. And that you can start talking about seed oils, vegetable canola, instead of using olive oil, butter, ghee, avocado oil, those things. But sometimes it's just a little harder to get out of those routines.
So I love that. Let's give us a list of oils that we should stay away from real fast.
Anything that's a seed oil, processed vegetable oil, canola oil, any version of that. Sometimes there's olive oils that if you read the ingredients, it's not olive oil. It's a little bit of olive oil or a blend. Am I missing any of the seed oils? Okay, yeah.
Okay. What's healthy? Is that the question?
Yeah,
What is healthy?
olive oil is probably one of the best. Avocado oil is more of an oil that you can use for searing things. It's a high temperature. It won't scorch as quickly. It's also a very mild flavor. They told us not to have butter. Butter's better for you than margarine. Margarine is a processed seed oil that was, well, I'll move on from that. And being, let's see, what did I miss? Ghee is good. Beef tallow is good. They're just better for you than those processed things because they're more of a natural product.
Great. So, Craig, in the senior community environment, like how does this play out in terms of like changing appetites and just health and dietary changes and needs? Like how do you adapt to that in the environment?
Well, I think for a lot of people who are coming to a senior living community for the first time, it can be a little shocking because we're really concerned about providing fully balanced meals and full meals and all the different things that we're talking about up here. And for some, it can seem like a little overwhelming because it's not just a quick little snack here or a little bite here. You're sitting down to have full meals. And when we start to think about things like sodium or salt or sugars, we're limiting those for your health, but your taste buds, like we talked about, aren't always used to that change. And so then you have the folks who have been there for a long time who have made the change and are like, stop with the sugar, stop with the salt. We don't want any salt. And then somebody in the back's going, I still like salt. And so finding the balance between how we're preparing foods and providing our residents with the opportunity to season it a little bit more, to add a little bit more stuff, and to provide good alternatives is something that's been important to make that transition, because eventually you get used to it. Eventually your body starts to adjust to the less sugar and the less salt, and then it's like if you haven't drank a Coca-Cola for a while and you go back and you try it after, if anybody gave it up for Lent when they're growing up, and then you go back and you have that first sip of Coca-Cola and it's like, it's the worst thing you've ever had. Well, for some. And then, so it's an adjustment and it's a period of time. And I think like we talk about, communication tends to be a really important thing, and an education about what we're serving, why we're doing it, and giving you alternatives to make the transition step by step, I think is important.
That's good. Chelsea, as we age and food becomes less appealing, our appetite decreases, what's a critical thing to understand about that? The idea of food and our relationship with food changes. Like what's important about that?
So I think when you have this drastic change in your relationship with food, it comes from a lot of different places, right? Like time, effort, and taste buds. So when you are trying to navigate and eat a healthier diet, it's really good to start thinking about what type of nutritious foods taste good. Is there ways to put things together that fill you up, that have nutrients, and that taste good for you? So you may decide maybe you used to really like cooked carrots and now you don't. So maybe you try raw carrots, maybe you try it in a different dip or sauce. Explore a little bit on new things, retry things maybe you used to not like, because your taste buds change and they become less sensitive, you may like things you once did not enjoy. So some people have found that as they get older, they like olives because olives are very strong flavor. They're a great fat source. And so that's something that's an easy snack for people. Even going back and trying, maybe they didn't like avocado. So sometimes it's a texture thing. Maybe we can make it a different way to get that healthy fat in. So it's about being open to exploring new foods or foods maybe you once disliked, because so much has changed that perhaps you will like them again or like them a different way. But just being really open is one of the biggest things, is willing to try new foods. Trying, maybe you like lemon or lime on some of your foods because they're a stronger flavor. They bring out some of the flavors, but it's really about exploring and being able to identify those foods and sometimes keep a list of the things that you're really starting to enjoy that you've tried, because it's easy to forget. Like if it's not something you do very often, it's easy to forget. Man, I forgot I really liked that recipe that I tried. Or so-and-so made this recipe and I really liked it. Well, if we don't write it down, it's not our normal, we may forget about it.
Yeah, that's good. So how many feel like over the last several years, nutrition advice or food has just become more confusing? Like you see commercials or you say this is healthy and that's healthy, and even today we talked about how the food pyramid is sort of flipped upside down, right? I mean, we all know that food pyramid, but that's different now. The emphasis on protein, the emphasis on hydration, like these are all things that as we age, we get set in our ways, but there's been a paradigm shift over the last bit. But how do you approach this with, and any one of you can answer this without it feeling overwhelming? There's that saying, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's not a good example at this seminar, but one bite at a time, right? But how do you begin to approach eating healthy? Where do I start? It feels completely overwhelming. So let's start with Chelsea, and then we'll go Craig, and then Clay. Where do you start with all that?
Okay, this is my favorite saying. The dose is the poison. There is no bad food.
The dose is the poison.
There is no bad food. There's no food that you have a bite of that's going to cause detrimental harm. It is really important to remember that, because being fearful of food causes people to freeze and causes them to give up, and they feel lost and like they don't know what to do. So I want you to remember what's really important is that you want to look at your diet and say, most of what I have in my diet is nutritious. Enjoy your treats. Enjoy the things that you love. But the majority of it needs to be healthy, and there are ways to find that you love that food. But don't obsess over things that aren't healthy. Fear does not work. And that is one of the biggest things I have seen, the change in nutrition, and I'm very passionate about it, is fear does not do us any favor. So I'm a firm believer in balance and enjoying what you're eating. It should bring joy to your life. And so don't feel that just because you have a little bit of something that may not be the ideal food or recommended, or you hear a lot of talk about, it is okay, because it's not about the food itself. It's about how frequently you consume it and how much.
That's good. So, Craig, in your current role, but also kind of stepping back in your relationship with food over the years, what would you say to someone to sort of okay, this is how we're going to approach this. We need to make some changes in the diet. What would be your kind of first steps in that?
Well, to play off what Chelsea said, I mean, a lot of it is about balance, and it's also about moderation to a certain extent. finding things that you really want to eat, that you like to eat, things that still taste good or that excite you about food is always a good place to start. And you can make sensible choices from there. If you like fruits, well, let's get whole fruits instead of the canned fruits. If you like, certain grains or certain breads, well, we can make better choices than just going and getting the Wonder White bread or, some of the different toppings that we have. We can take those flavors and we can do something else with them. We can make them better. Most of it's about using whole foods and in their natural state. But also there's the moderation piece where just because we like the brownies and that's the only thing we want to eat, we can't eat a whole pan. And so, we try, and sometimes we may. We can't eat the ice cream. But so let's figure out, and I don't mean to say this like in a reward type of thing, but if we like brownies, let's have something that's maybe more healthy and reward ourselves with a little bit of a nicer dessert. But for me, it comes down to balance. It comes down to moderation and finding the things that you really get excited about, that you want to eat. Because food, our relationship changes, and now we don't want to cook. Now we're forced to eat whatever somebody else has decided for us. Well, that's where the back and forth and the communication comes. What is it that you like? Hey, I don't like that pasta at all. Could you stop serving pasta? Let's look at rice. There's so many options, but you just have to advocate for yourself and think about what makes you happy in the food, and then work with people and professionals. And there's a lot of online resources that can help you take those needs and make them into something that I think you can really like.
That's good. How about you, Clay?
So I think Chelsea said it several times, is starting small, not overwhelming yourself. And when we go in and we're doing consultations and we're talking about the menu that we're going to be preparing, people are like, we want this, 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 and this. And I'm like, well, how do you eat now? Well, this is how we eat now. I said, okay, so let's start small. Let's pick 3 dishes that are more to what you're eating now, and maybe that 4th dish is something a little bit healthier, or we're cutting this out of that dish. And then the next time we can go to 2 dishes and slowly move people into where they're eating a little healthier. For example, they're like, we want to cut out all carbs. Okay, so do you eat that way now? No, we don't. Okay, well then let's just do the spaghetti and meatballs this time, but next time we're going to try it with spaghetti squash instead of the processed noodles. So I think it's key is to not get overwhelmed and start small. So I think it's a great point.
It reminds me of years ago when our kids were little. Seinfeld, remember him? He's the comedian. His wife had a cookbook on how to cook all the vegetables and hide them in foods, and so your kids won't know they're eating vegetables. Maybe we should create a cookbook where you get all these nutrients, but it tastes like a pan of brownies. I don't know. We could be millionaires if we came up with that idea. But what are some staples that you would recommend to be in everyone's refrigerator? And as you're thinking about that, also really want to emphasize the idea of processed foods, not good for you. And you're right after, in the 40s, 50s, everything became much easier, and high yield wheat that is not good for you, and all these things. So, but you can comment on that. But also, what are some things in our fridges that if I opened up, you would say, yes, that's good, that's good, that's good?
One, of course, olive oil. And I know avocados, which you've mentioned multiple times, but we like to cook what we call whole foods. So squash, it's a whole piece of squash. We're going to cut it up and we're going to saute it, or we're going to roast it. Get rid of some of the processed foods. If you're going to eat a carbohydrate, eat a complex carb. So eat, maybe beans over just a white pasta or white bread. But again, back to the whole foods, fresh berries, fresh things that are easy to snack on, that taste good, that are good for you, instead of the bag of chips, or processed popcorn. If you're going to have popcorn, maybe you pop it yourself. But again, back to the whole foods, the berries, the fruits, the bananas, the squash and zucchini, bag of spinach, things like that that are easy to prepare, that don't take a lot of time, but they're better for you.
Craig?
I'll go next. For me, also the lean proteins are important. And so when you're talking of poultry, chicken, turkey, all of these are good to, you can pre-cook and keep them in your refrigerator and use little bits in different meals. Salmon is an amazing source of protein. If you like canned fish, sardines, and others are very high in the omega oils and the things that make our brains healthy. But if you're looking for the proteins that you can add to the things that Clay's talking about, make it easier for yourself. If you're cooking for a day, cook all the chicken, cook all the turkey. Just have it all ready to go so you can pick it out. Another real good snack is hummus. The Mediterranean diet, and I don't mean the Mediterranean diet, but I mean the way a lot of Mediterranean foods are so good for you, whether it's the hummuses, it's the olives, it's the fresh vegetables, it's artichokes, and on, and they always are going to emphasize the olive oils and just, you have a bunch of different little things in your refrigerator. You can grab them and make something different each time. It's almost like going to a buffet, and like a salad buffet with your own stuff, and you just throw a little bit of this, and then you have your really good dressing that you like.
I really, I love all that stuff. This is great. And so one of the things, too, as he mentioned, like canned fish, is salmon especially. It comes with the bones, and you can make, like, they're teeny tiny, but they're great for calcium. So you can I like to make little salmon patties. That's just so easy because you're not having to, it's already kind of done for you. Just throwing it together, throwing it on a pan, a few minutes later, you've got it. Eggs are another really great source of protein that cook up real quickly, so that's awesome too. And then having yogurt, like a Greek yogurt in your fridge, they're great sources of protein and calcium too, so that might be another option for you as well. And then, sometimes it's like if you're in this bind where it's like, well, I don't have any protein, I don't have time this week, I've got things going on, rotisserie chicken is great.
I love rotisserie chicken. Yeah, it's great. So, this is maybe controversial, right? Let's be edgy today. So, are there times as you age that you just have to eat because that's what you have to do? You just may not enjoy it. Like, I don't really want to eat. I'm not hungry, but I know I've got to get this protein in me. Like, what do you think about that?
I can go on this one. So, I don't know how many of y'all had COVID. But a lot of people after COVID, they couldn't smell. My mom got COVID, and after that, she can't smell, she can't taste. And so she does not enjoy food like she used to, but she needs to eat. She needs to eat on a regular basis. And I come across that a lot. Some people, like, well, I can't eat a lot. You don't want to make yourself sick, but smaller meals throughout the day usually helps with digestion, and then lots of water to help with those things. We've had people that have saliva issues, and it helps when they are eating to have water with it. But yeah, I think not being able to smell and taste things, it's really hard to want to eat because you can't taste things like you used to.
Yeah. Anybody else on that one? About just sometimes you just have to eat because you need to eat.
Yeah, your food is your gasoline, and it's just like you can eat, if it's easier for you to eat small things throughout the day, because just eating a big meal when you don't want to is very hard, so sometimes just breaking it up and having little things throughout the day so that you're fueling your body, but kind of looking at it as the fuel that you need to keep going is a really important way to look at it, because as much as we want it to be something you enjoy and something that brings you happiness, sometimes it's just like, man, I gotta do this. And it's just something we have to do to feel our best.
It's good. So now let's go to the other extreme of making food enjoyable. So Clay, when you are working with seniors, and how do you balance healthy eating with comfort foods, flavors they enjoy? Like, what's your process for that?
I'm going to go back to starting small. Maybe pick one or two of the dishes, two that are comfort food, two that are a little bit healthier on that mind diet. You know, maybe they don't like salmon, so we try steelhead trout, which is similar, or we go to a cod, which is a white fish. You know, that's a milder fish, but still a cold water fish that has some of those better fats for you. One of the biggest issues we run into is my doctor told me I can't have any salt. Okay, do you eat no salt now? No, but I want to. It is a huge change, and I can't tell you how many times, well, the food just didn't taste right? We took salt out of it. So we try to combat that with zest and lemon juice and vinegars and more fresh herbs and things like that, but it is a big challenge. So sometimes it's like, well, let's just start and let's go slow and let's get you adapted to that. So starting small, we're going to cut out most of the salt, and then maybe next time we cut out a little bit more of the salt, or we're not going to put any salt, but I do recommend you hitting it with just a little bit of salt when you're eating it. So that's been a big challenge is people that are used to no salt, that's easy. We can take salt out of most everything we cook. You know, you've got low sodium soy sauces and bases and things like chicken base and beef base that are going to have some sodium in them, but we can get around those now. Even with like HEB, they have a no sodium chicken broth now, and those things can be either reduced down and or thickened for bring more flavor into it.
So that brings up a good point. I was going to mention earlier, I have heard many times over the years the best and most healthy eating is the perimeter of a grocery store. Fruits, veggies, fresh meats, it's all on the outside. It's when you get into trouble when you go into the middle aisles, right? Have you guys heard that? I mean, it's more the packaged, processed foods, canned foods. So that's an interesting take, is just to think, how do I stay on the perimeter of a grocery store? So that's my contribution today. There, that was free. But Chelsea, how do you encourage making food enjoyable and not restrictive, right? Because it kind of feels like we're saying more water, protein, fiber, all these things, and it's like, but how do you make it enjoyable still?
I like to meet people where they're at. So I like to figure out what's their goals, what's important for you, like really thinking about what you will actually do, what you're wanting to change, what you're willing to change, because that varies person to person. Sometimes it just takes some education to show, hey, prepping this meal or cooking these foods aren't as bad as I thought, or I learned the skills to make them a little bit faster, a little bit more flavorful, but it's really trying to assess what you're going to follow through with and kind of testing yourself and saying, okay, what am I more likely to do? So food has come a long way, and yes, it has over the years become very processed. However, there has been a slight change. They have started to create foods that are minimally processed, that are healthy options, especially if the alternative is picking up fast food. So I want you to keep that in mind, that of course, whole foods is the goal, but we've got to start with where you're at. And so can you start adding in some more whole foods on top of what you're eating and deduct some of the more processed foods from your diet? But it doesn't mean your diet has to be perfect. So to enjoy what you're doing, you have to find the balance for you and what you want to accomplish for your health. And sometimes when you start making changes, it's kind of like that fire under you, because you start to notice how you feel. And sometimes that is what helps people keep going in their healthy changes, is they start to notice, man, I feel better, I'm less tired, I have more energy, I don't feel like, I feel maybe your health is getting better, your labs are improving. So there's lots of things that can kind of be that factor that makes you excited about these changes and make these healthy changes more enjoyable, because there's so many rewards you're kind of getting from that.
Yeah, Clay.
Chelsea, so you mentioned that they're coming up with new foods that are processed, but maybe processed differently. What are your thoughts on these protein pastas that they've come out with, either the chickpea or just some of these other ones, back to the protein, but they are much better mouthfeel and taste than they used to be, and you're getting that extra protein, but they're still processed. So I was curious of your thoughts on those.
Yeah, so I love that stuff. It's wonderful. So, when I'm in a bind and I do not have time or have not cooked a protein, I'm like, at least I got this protein pasta I can throw into this dish. I like some of the higher protein granola bars. They just use some whey protein, which is natural, and they throw it into those granola bars. It is better than nothing. It's better than not getting that protein in. So sometimes we're in a bind. And also, processed is a very confusing term because everything is processed, really. Because we didn't go out and, get this cow and cut it up, and so it's processed, right? So there's nuts and seeds, all of those things are processed as well, but minimally processed. So those are things to think about too, but those protein pastas are fantastic. And that's what I was talking about, just something new on the market that makes getting your protein in a little bit easier.
I wanted to add something, and these kind of foods are not the least expensive either. And so people will say, just go eat organic or go here, and then you go to Whole Foods, and as we've all grown up hearing, it's whole paycheck. And so it can be very expensive to eat healthy. It can be almost, you look at the prices of some of the things that they will say it's the healthiest, it's organic, it's the best for you, and sometimes it's very price prohibitive. And so I want to go back to what both of my cohorts here are saying, and you start small and you find the balance, and you start with a couple things, and you look for the things that are the most egregious in the way they're processed, and start there with some of the fresher vegetables and clean them real well. And you don't need everything organic all the time, and you don't need everything to be the most healthy on the market. You just have to start to work it yourself and to figure out what works for you, and start small, because it can be very expensive, and you walk into these places and they're enormous. Where do you even start? Just start with a couple things.
That's good. Craig, from your perspective in a senior living community, food is comfort, it's connection, it's routine, and what have you sort of learned about that in how that impacts people in the social aspect of food?
So much of in the senior living communities, that may be one of the very few times that people get to interact together. For a lot of people, there's activities and there's events and things to do, but typically it's around meals that we connect, that we bond, and that we share a meal. And then, so for us in our communities, and I'm sure this is true of all the communities, the goal is to get people to eat together, to share meals together, because for me, people sit a little bit longer. They're gonna be a little bit more adventurous if they're with another group of people, if they're with a friend who says, I know you don't like this, but it's really good, try it. And that helping each other branch out, try new things, but also the community aspect of living and dining together, I think changes brain chemistry as well. And so I think if you're happier, if your mood is better, if you're just enjoying the place, the table, the floors, the plates, all of that adds to the experience that will make eating more enjoyable. And that connection and the communication that you have with other people, I think also enhances it as well to make you want to go to eat. Even if you're not hungry, you still want to go see your friends. You still want to sit down and hear what happened with the grandkids today. And so you're more inclined to pick up better habits when other people are around you as well.
That's good. And if you live by yourself, then maybe once or twice a week, call a friend, have dinner with a friend or family members that maybe live nearby. But I love that, what you just said about the social piece and the brain chemistry. It's a very real thing. Our connection to food is very complicated.
And one thing I wanted to add, if you're inviting a friend over for a meal, go online, find a different recipe you've never tried before. Try it with your friend. Even if it's weird, it doesn't make any sense, your kids or your grandkids gave them to you, just try it. Because if you win or fail, you've still had a great experience together. And you know what? Bring your friend over and cook together. Just don't invite them just for dinner. Come on over. Let's make a meal together. Let's cook what Grandma used to make. Invite your sister or your brother over and make something that you remember from 20 years ago.
That's good. So sometimes people come to seminars and it can feel like, what do I take away from this? This is overwhelming. And so we want this to be very practical for you and to be able to take away one or two things. So I'll ask each of you, and we'll start with Clay, then Chelsea, then Craig. If you had to give our folks here, kind of one tip, word of advice, action step, just to start, what would that be? And you can actually say more than that, but at least one.
I think I'm going to go back to the whole food aspect, and eat whole foods, eat, small portions, and eat throughout the day, and water.
I know it's hard just to say one. So I would say making sure you're eating and you're just getting enough. Calories is the baseline, right? Nutrients is very important, but to sustain ourselves, you need adequate calories. So just make sure you're eating throughout the day. One meal a day is not likely to get the nutrition that you need.
I'm going to say try to have fun with it. I'm going to try to enjoy the preparation or the process of cooking or of making, or even just going anywhere on TV, online. Find new recipes. Make it like a hobby to find things that you've never tried before, or things that you remembered from when you have traveled all over the wonderful places you've traveled to. Go, you remember that thing I had? And so make it like a fun daily or weekly habit to say, you know what, I'm going to try 2 new things today, and I'm going to have some fun with it. And I'm going to invite my neighbor or my grandkids or whoever over to try this thing with me, because I don't know if I know how to do it, but it's the interaction piece.
I love that, and I'm going to put you on the spot again. I love this when I do to my panelists. As a side note, protein pasta is good, and I don't know if you've heard about that. Look it up. It'll say on the package protein pasta, and it's a good way to get protein. There are some still that have there's a different texture. Don't eat it thinking this is going to be just like my good old Durham wheat pasta, whatever. It's different, but it's much better for you and gets you some protein. But what is your individual go-to happy meal, nutritious kind of food that a meal or that you would eat personally? And not a happy meal as a McDonald's happy meal, but a generally happy, makes your heart happy.
I'll go first. For us, it's like a Mediterranean style. So we'll cook chicken. We will have chickpeas, and we'll have hummus and tzatziki, and we'll have lettuce and leafy greens, and we'll have roasted vegetables. And often we'll make it, and we'll have it enough for the week, or at least a couple meals, because they're just easy. You don't have to do a lot with that kind of cooking. You can just put a whole bunch of vegetables with some olive oil and some light seasonings and throw in the oven for 45 minutes, and it's delicious. And you're tasting the actual foods, but you can mix them with the different beans that we've talked about, different grains. But that would be my go-to, is because it hits all the different areas that we need to stay healthy with.
I'll give you my favorite really quick meal when I have a million things going on. I love bowls, because a bowl, you can have it a million different ways. You can have it like a Mexican-style bowl. You can do an Italian, Mediterranean, whatever you want. So my go-to thing is I will do some of the chopped salad bag, throw that in there. I will do the quick cook grains. So you can buy these whole grain packets, 90 seconds in the microwave. And it's this or I don't eat some days. And so I will throw that in the microwave, throw part of that packet in my bowl, and then I'll throw on some what if I have some leftover protein like meat, or you could do like a tuna, or I'll buy rotisserie chicken, throw it on there, and then I decide what topping do I want. Do I want to add salsa? Do I want to add like a balsamic vinaigrette, or what sauce? What am I feeling? And so I love to throw that together because I can just kind of use the same ingredients, but based on my mood, I'll top it with different things. You can top it with hummus. So it's just very flexible, very quick, and very nutrient dense. So it kind of hits all the spots. You know, you're getting your protein, you're getting your whole grains, your fiber, your veggies, and so that's just my favorite thing. And there's so many ways to be flexible with it.
Well, I can't wait, Clay, because y'all are making me hungry, and it's about lunchtime. But go ahead, Clay. That's what you got.
I've been sitting here thinking about this, going, wow. Personally, I'm going to change this a little bit. Comfort food or happy food would be gumbo. We would go gumbo. But for something on a weeknight that, they told us not to eat for a long time, but now you find out it's very nutrient dense, is lean beef. A tenderloin or a top sirloin, great protein, and then maybe some roasted cauliflower, roasted broccoli. That our family does. We do that a lot at our house.
I want to just jump in and say the Oscar's serving gumbo tonight. We already have it on the menu. And we're also doing a shrimp bowl tonight, too. Isn't that, look at this. I mean, we didn't plan this, but look at that. Isn't that fun?
Dinner is at the Oscar tonight, folks. That's what I heard him say. He's got tickets. He'll have you later. Well, we are, time just flew by, but we have about an hour now, and we could go on and on, right? I feel like we've just scratched the surface of food and eating healthy and aging well with our diet, and so our panelists are going to be available after, so feel free to connect with them. But also, we're going to have a Q&A time. If I could get one of my educational partners to come up and grab Craig's microphone and be a mic runner for me, I would really appreciate that. And then for questions, if the three of you could share those two mics. And then I'll have another mic here. So think of a question that you have, and then we'll walk around the room here. And feel free to put them on the spot, because they're really smart people, and they won't be shook by anything. Yes, ma'am.
If you look at the grams of protein per food, they're usually fairly low, like 5 in oatmeal or 6 in eggs, etc. How would you get to 70 or 80 a day, going from breakfast, lunch, and dinner? How would you put together one day?
So it depends on your habits. If you're going to eat 3 meals a day, maybe a snack. So a good option for breakfast would be doing some yogurt, some Greek yogurt. So they have high protein Greek yogurt, which helps you get there a little bit quicker. So Greek yogurt is great. Eggs are good, but they're like 7 grams of protein or so per egg. So you'd really need about 2 to kind of get you into a good range. Breakfast tends to be a little bit lower in protein for most people. But if you're really thinking about it, you need like 25 grams of protein per meal at least. And so doing that Greek yogurt, you can do the eggs. You can also so for like lunch, that's where having like a bowl comes in. So, trying to get 4 ounces of some sort of protein in is really your best bet. So like tuna goes a long way without being very filling if you like it. I know it's not everybody's thing, but it's kind of more bang for your buck without feeling as heavy. Chicken's great. You can do like ground turkey, but you're gonna need 4 to 5 ounces. So that's, it's hard to envision it, but it's kind of like about the palm of your hand and as thick as the deck of cards is close to 4 ounces. And so that would be something to shoot for. And then you would have to repeat that with dinner. So having something at dinner that has a similar amount of protein for most people, if you want your protein in for the day and you get full easy, you need to start with your protein first when you're eating your meal, and then go to the sides. Start with protein, then the sides. If you're gonna have a snack, kind of depending on what you ate the rest of the day, you can add in, this is where like Greek yogurt, edamame is a wonderful source of protein. You can do pumpkin seeds, they're a great source of protein. So things like that are really good ways to try to get in that. Also for some people, if it's kind of like I am either not going to eat or I am really full, not feeling hungry at all, sometimes one of those protein drinks are a good option. Making a smoothie is a great option. And with that smoothie, you could do that great high protein Greek yogurt in there with some fruit and really get in that protein without feeling full quickly.
Does drinking water, lots of things that you read say drink before you eat, of course you're trying to lose weight, and then drink after you eat, but not with your meal. And I try that, but it just seems to dilute the food. You know, you take a bite, you drink, you take a bite, you drink, so address that issue.
We're going to defer to you on this one again.
All right. So one thing is you have to know yourself and you have to kind of adjust based on how you feel. So one of the things is yes, sometimes when you drink during a meal, you feel full quicker, or you drink before a meal, you feel full quicker. So a lot of times if you're feeling full fast, you should really try to drink after. Now, it's not like you can't have a sip of water if you need it when you're eating, definitely, but if you're trying to also be mindful of your fluid intake, really work that into after a meal rather than before or during.
And I'd like to stay away from carbonated beverages as well. They will fill you up a lot quicker. Even if it's sparkling water, it will fill you up.
My question is about weight. You end up cutting back on food or I don't eat 3 meals a day. And then if you eat 3 meals a day, you end up gaining weight. And so it's kind of a back and forth. And I'm thinking about also the resident places. If they're offering me 3 meals a day, I'm likely to be down there. And then I'm not going to be happy with the scale. How do you balance those two completely divergent process? It's like going to a buffet, you can't put it down.
Right, and you're served, you choose an option and you're served a plate of food, and we're all taught finish your plate. And if you do that a lot, you're right, you're going to, you could gain weight. Now, people also gain weight from the delicious desserts and and the extra snacks and the ice creams. But I think it's okay to push away your plate a little bit and push away from the table every once in a while, because you're also, especially when you make a transition, you're learning about yourself and what your body, the caloric intake changes as you age as well, and you need less. But you still need, as we're talking about, all the different proteins. And so part of it's knowing yourself, like we're talking about. And also part of it is communicating with the people that are taking care of you, or friends or family. I don't need that much. And taking a look at what you're doing and making sure you're getting the important things in first before the mashed potatoes or before, the pasta salads or those kind of things that are delicious, but things we want to eat first. You kind of got to work towards the important stuff first and then moderate and do smaller portions, because you don't want to gain weight. And if a lot of people become diabetic too, and so you have to be really careful of your sugars, and so the desserts, and they want to fill you up. So it's a challenge, and it's a process, and it's not something you get right away, and it's something through figuring your body out, your changing body, and how you're adjusting to the new things. It's okay to not finish your plate all the time, because then we'll just serve you less, and we'll figure out the balance that you're looking for to make you feel your optimum health.
Yeah, just gonna add one thing is that sometimes it's not about because you're eating 3 meals a day, it is the what you're eating. Because volume eating is something where you can have a lot of food, like fruits, veggies, whole grain, lean proteins, and get, if you were to look at this on a visual plate, you could have a whole lot of that stuff compared to perhaps if you were having something, maybe a lot different restaurant food or something else. It can be drastically volume different. So what you're eating determines the caloric intake.
I want to ask you, does using my microwave change the nutritional value of the food?
I'd like to hear your answer.
Well, I can say anytime you heat food, you do have some nutrient loss. It's not enough to really be concerned about. My sister is a chemistry major, and I can tell you it does not. It does not. Science has debunked that many times. It's not the microwave in particular, it's the heat. So anything, and just like if you leave fruit and veggies on your counter, the longer they are there, the more nutrient loss you have. So it is not worth being very concerned about, because what's most important is that you are eating.
Yes, I was wondering, what do you think about the intermittent fasting? Is that a good idea for seniors?
Yeah, so this is a question I get all the time from all ages, and not ideally, right? Especially for seniors, it really depends on your hunger level, your appetite. If you don't have a great appetite, or if you can't eat much at one time, that's probably not the most ideal. Also depends on your goals, right? So what are your goals? What are your other health issues? Because there's certain things that intermittent fasting is not good to pair with certain health conditions. So it really depends on the person, but generally intermittent fasting isn't recommended for seniors because they're not likely to get inadequate nutrition.
But add to that a little bit, and also we're looking for a nice, good balance across. And intermittent fasting for some people is a good thing if you're losing weight or you're training or you're doing other things, but you want to have, your blood sugars want to be consistent. A lot of folks take medicines, and so you need to keep food in your stomach for the medicine so you don't get upset or your stomach doesn't hurt. But keeping that good blood sugar, keeping your hunger at a good level rather than having it spike so much, I think is going to be healthier and feel better for most.
I've got some. So, again, goals. What were the goals that you're looking for there? But a lot about, and I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but it's about what we're putting in our bodies. If we want to lose weight, calories in, calories out, nutritious, dense, nutrient-dense food, in our bodies over things that, are, yeah, we love them, potato chips, not really nutritious, so if we're eating those every day.
So we got a quick question for you. My mother-in-law is born and raised in central Wisconsin, makes her own sauerkraut. Haven't heard any of you speak to that type of food. So she swears by a couple bites at least on a daily basis to help with the gut health and all of that. What do you guys think about that?
I love it. Probiotics, natural, and there's lots of things. Kimchi is one. I think it's really good. Our gut health is extremely important, especially as we age. So anytime you can get those probiotics naturally, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I would say probiotics are big. So anytime a lot of medications that we take changes kind of your gut bacteria and the family that live there. So it's all about your gut needs a balance of good and bad bacteria. And sometimes that gets thrown off with medications with illness, with stress, with all sorts of things that come with life. So if you can get probiotics into your diet, that's fantastic. So again, that's another like big thing about yogurt, is it's a nice way to get both protein and probiotics, but like sauerkraut's awesome, kimchi, and kefir. They have these drinks out that you can get with that now. So those are other things to think about, like adding to your diet where you can.
I have heard that if you take sauerkraut, you should take refrigerated sauerkraut because that has more probiotics. Have you heard that or read that?
Yeah, I've heard that before. I know, like HEB a lot. The canned stuff, I think it kills some of the probiotics when they're canning it, but the stuff that's like in the bag at HEB, I think the probiotics are still active, so I think it is better for you. Anything fermented, even onions or pickles or anything fermented is going to have more probiotics, as long as they're not killed.
Okay. The other question I have is, I've converted to Greek yogurt, and I like to have the vanilla flavored. I also like to have the no sugar. I've noticed if you get it the small packets, there's a high sugar content in that, and I'm not sure about the probiotic effect as much from those. Am I correct in that thinking?
Well, you should have the same amount. It depends on the brand and all these things, but it should have the same amount, whether it's flavored or not flavored, of probiotics. So that doesn't change between like the flavors being added. So you're still getting a good source. But one thing to look at if you're buying yogurt, if you look at the back, it'll tell you whether or not these are live cultures, and that is what you're looking for, because sometimes it's a little bit misleading. They're kind of marketing the probiotics, but you turn it around, there's no live cultures, so you're really not getting any.
Chelsea, on the yogurts, how do you feel about the low fat versus the regular fat? Because I know we find a lot of low fat items, which they told us to eat for years, a lot more sugars in it.
Yeah, again, it depends on like what you got going on with your health, because that sometimes changes things. But I do enjoy the mouthfeel and how long you stay full of the higher fat yogurts are really nice. I tend to find that you don't need as much sugar with those because they taste better. One, I can tell you a brand that was researched as one of the best, like plain yogurts, as far as does not come with as like the tartness of a plain yogurt, is the Fage brand. It's the Fage, has been really well researched and being one of the best out there for being the least tart in the plain options. And I love to add like nuts and seed to it. I like to have different textures, and then I'll add some fruit to it. And so that's a really way to make it nutritious. If you like flax or chia seeds, or basil seeds is actually really high in fiber. I just sprinkle some of those in, and it's a very nutritious option for a snack or breakfast.
I will give a shout out to Fage, like it's Fage, and HEB sells them in the little individual packets. And I usually have 5 or 6 a week in my fridge, and that's my breakfast. And they're 20 grams of they're high in protein. And then Sprouts actually has some that has a prepackaged little pouch of like fruit on the side, so you can kind of get your little fruit too. But TMI, too much information, I'm lactose intolerant. Fage has lactose-free yogurt as well, so if that can help as well. But anything else? Anyone else? This has been so great. Is anyone any other questions? So we encourage you to stick around, ask our folks questions. Also, please check out our educational partners and their tables. I'll ask you guys to come on to your tables. We believe in seniors planning smarter. And so as you look around some of these tables, you might think, I don't need that right now, but you might, as somebody you know probably does. So get to know these amazing, incredible folks at our tables, our educational partners. Also at our Seniors Living Smarter table, I just printed out a couple of these. These are little invite cards. They didn't quite get printed out. They're a little flimsy, but next time they'll be more like cardstock. Take one. and give it to somebody. We believe this is an amazing opportunity for free, but take a couple of these cards and hand it to somebody and say, come to this. We want to grow our audience here. So, and then your feedback form, make sure you fill that out. And there's a basket on this table right here. There's some already in there. Just drop that in there. And I think, and then next month, our seminar is, are you tech savvy enough? So every tips every senior should know. So we're having an IT guy here, and it's going to be lots of fun. So are you tech savvy enough? I don't think I am. It changes every day, and AI is here, folks. AI is here to stay. So, but again, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Perfect. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hang out with us for a while, okay? Thank you.